Fighting Blindness Canada's Young Leaders Program is a career-oriented initiative that provides young people, aged 15 to 30, who are blind or partially sighted in Canada with the tools they need to develop skills and pursue rewarding careers. The webinar you're about to watch is a recording. To learn more about this program, visit us online at fightingblindness.ca under the Get Involved tab. The Young Leaders Program is proudly supported by RBC Future Launch. We hope you enjoy this webinar and share your thoughts with us in the comment section below.
So as Morgan said, Mary Mammoliti is here to cook with us. That's because she's lovely. She cooks all the time. She's here to kind of give us some tips. She's low vision herself. She'll be giving us a little bit of her journey as well. But also, before, during, after, if you want to get more of Mary Mammoliti and all of her good stuff in one solid place, that's kitchenconfession.com. She has a podcast. She has another podcast. and she has all her recipes, tips, tricks, everything up there. So I highly encourage you. Very accessible place for you to find all of her her neat things. So Mary, hello.
Hello.
You're joining us from where? Give us a description of where you are right now.
I am standing in my kitchen. I've got a whole bunch of food in front of me ready to cook for you guys and walk you through one of my really quick, simple recipes that I love to do. And so I'm in my kitchen. I'm in my kitchen. Welcome to my kitchen.
We can hear it. We can hear the kitchen for any of us who are going, that's a lot of vibrato. That's where she is, all the echo. I want to get to know you a little bit, Mary. You come on AMI every other week on Kelly and Company to chat with us and give us your cooking tips and recipes and all that good stuff. But tell us a little bit about your journey when it comes to your career, because you've had some transitions.
I have. So I didn't always cook. I mean, I cooked for myself, but that was about it. I have RP and I am now central vision. So I've got no peripheral. And I basically I was diagnosed when I was 21. So it was a little later on. I always knew there was something a little different about me. Just couldn't figure out what it was, nor could the doctors at the time. So going through life, 21, get diagnosed. And it was a bit of a shock. It was shocking. I didn't know what to do with that information. And at the time, we didn't have the social medias, the computers, the thing. Well, I'm making myself sound like a dinosaur. We had computers, but there wasn't all this information readily available for us right at our fingertips. So I did what I thought I was supposed to do, and I hid it. I didn't talk about it. I didn't let very many people know what was happening. Because I don't think I knew myself exactly what was happening. And I just continued life. Basically, I was living a lie. I was an imposter. I felt like I was living a double life. And as I got older, worked towards a career, which I thought was supposed to be numbers and finance. Funny enough, I hated math. And that's what I ended up, choosing as my career, working towards that, losing my sight. So my sight was deteriorating over time, and it was becoming more difficult to do what I was doing. I wasn't ready to accept it. And I think the reason why, and I know now, I know now why I chose to not say anything about it. In my mind, I came up with, and I manifested this whole, scenario that people were going to look at me different. But even if they did, that was okay. It's just at the time, I didn't want to be treated differently. I didn't want to, or at least this is what I thought. And I thought that was going to be a reason why they would let me go from my job. But that was all made up. That was something in my head that I kind of manifested and made into this big ordeal. And bottom line is, I wasn't ready to accept what was happening. So I lived my life that way of hiding it, which I know now was the worst thing I could have done. I am living right now my best life. And I'm happier now than I've ever been with less sight, which is unusual for people to hear. But it's the truth, because I got into finance and finally one day I'm like, I can't do this. I cannot do this any longer. I was giving myself headaches. I was struggling, looking at spreadsheets and computers and double big screens. And it was just a lot for me. So I decided to leave that career. Kind of spiraled a bit, because when you're working towards something and you think that's what you're meant to do, that's your career, you've been working towards it all this time, I don't know what to do with myself. So I'm going to kind of cut through all the little pieces and just kind of jump ahead a little bit. And I found myself cooking in the kitchen again. And I found myself loving it. It's a place, look, I almost dropped my pan. I'm so excited. It's a place where I can be myself. And I found my, courage, my strength. It was so empowering to be back into the kitchen, not having anyone to tell me, watch that step, or look where you're going, or, be careful. It's funny to say, look where you're going. Okay, if I could, I would, but I can't. So, it was a lot of that. And in the kitchen, I didn't need any of that. It was just me and whatever I was doing. So I never thought about my condition. I never thought about what was happening. I just thought about what I was doing and what I was creating. And it just made me feel good, because I was able to nourish myself and then give that to someone else. And just to have their expression. And really, who's angry around food? No one. We're always happy around food. So, and that's something that I've always grown up with. We grew up in a family where food was how we expressed ourselves. I'm Italian background, so food was always at the center of everything. And growing up, it's how we expressed love, how we would comfort anyone. We had an open door policy. You'd pop in, have a coffee, and there was always either, cookies or something going on the table. And if you were there long enough, you were having dinner, so, and that's just something that I found worked well with helping me heal, and helping me accept my new normal, which honestly, it's been phenomenal, because I have been able to find my strength and empowerment through food. And that's what I love to share, and want to pass that on to other people, to find their happiness and their, strength through food.
Mm-hmm. And I love it, Mary, because honestly, when you talk about how you had to make that change, and one day it was just all too much for you and you had to get out of it, and then it wasn't really get out of it and get right in the kitchen, right? There was that whole phase of little things that had to happen and places you had to go and things you had to try for you to end up back in the kitchen and be like, oh my gosh, it was there all along. My kitchen and open arms. That's amazing. And I'm curious about what goes on in the kitchen when it comes to your vision, how you built accessibility in there, and the assistive technologies that you use to make the experience amazing for you.
Okay, so there are a lot of things that we can do. And I've learned, and I call them my little hacks, because what I do is I do a couple of little things that help me stay safe in the kitchen. One of them is, very first one off the top of my head is secure your cutting board. So I'm going to start with non-technology, and then we're going to move into a couple of cool apps that I've come across that have been really helpful in the kitchen. You want to secure your cutting board. So you get yourself either a paper towel or a dish towel. You want to get that damp, wring it out, place it on top of your counter, and place your cutting board on top, and it'll stabilize your cutting board, because you want to make sure that does not move when you're chopping. That's the first thing. Second, chopping. Keep your knife tucked underneath your cutting board at all times. Because this way, if you're running your hand across your board, you're not going to cut yourself. So it's always tucked away, safe. And I mean, right now I don't have it tucked away because I have a small little space in front of me with all these plates filled with food and a cooktop here. So right now I know exactly where it is to the side of me. I like having everything out before I begin cooking to make sure that I have all the ingredients. I don't have to go searching for it, because with my condition, if I have to go searching for something, it's not a 2-second thing. Like if someone, 2020, no, me, I have to take time. And so I like to have that all in front of me. So make sure that you have all the ingredients readily available in front of you. What are a couple of...
Organized overall, right? Like with or without technology, these are things that you can just do on a regular.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Identifying your salt and pepper mills. Elastic band on one, the other one doesn't have one. This is what I found really cool. So there's an app, Seeing AI. I don't know if anyone's heard of it, and there's another one, Tap Tap See. But with Seeing AI, I mean, actually, it's a cool little game too with it, because it'll identify faces that are directly in front of you. So for anyone that hasn't heard of this, it's an app that will recognize whomever's standing in front of you, and it'll describe them to you, which is really cool because it actually shaved about 5 or 8 years off my life. So I was a lot younger. I know someone, and I've heard of it going the opposite way. They described someone that, they added about 8 years to their life, and then, the person got all offended. I'm like, it's the app. But that's a lot of fun to play with. But it's nice because it can describe what's in front of you. So for example, if you're looking for a can of beans, you don't know which one it is. They all have the same size. A couple of things this app can do is if you place it directly, if you point it towards the can, it'll read what the label says. Or there's a feature where it'll scan the barcode. It'll tell you what is in that container, or in that can. Also for spices, it's great to identify spices. And Tap Tap See works the same way. So very similar, except Tap Tap See, you have to have VoiceOver activated, the accessibility feature on your phone in order to use that app, whereas Seeing AI does not. Couple of things, get yourself, if you're going to get a kitchen startup kit, get yourself a talking scale. I highly recommend this. Couple of measuring cups, individual ones, not a solid one. If you choose to get a solid measuring cup, you can place behind it something like a dark surface. So this way, if you're pouring in a clear liquid, you can see it going through the glass. Talking thermometer. You definitely want a talking thermometer in your kitchen starter kit. That is extremely helpful.
Double thumbs up for that one.
Right?
My entire kitchen experience having a talking thermometer.
It's a game changer. And the one thing I always recommend, and a lot of people don't know, is Google Home or the Amazon Echo, but I have a Google Home and I use it for everything in the kitchen. Aside from, playing my playlist, which I absolutely love in the kitchen, I use it for, to convert measurements, to read recipes. You can pause them. You can skip forward. I use it to time. So if I have to put a timer of whatever's in the oven or on the stove, I'll set my timer through Google. I'm not going to say the command now because it'll actually turn mine on. So Google, I would also put that into my starter kit, definitely.
Awesome. Well, Mary, all great stuff, and we want to get cooking ASAP, but I just have one more question for you. Specifically relating to this year, COVID-19 and things that have come up. Anything that changed for you during COVID that was kind of a struggle or a little bit challenging, more than usual? And I'm not really just talking about overeating as I've done in the past few months.
Yeah.
Potentially beyond that.
You know what? I've had a couple of experiences. Some, they've been okay. Others, not so great. I've had them when I've gone to the grocery store. I've had them when I've gone to the assessment centers. So what's been interesting is that one thing I want to give some advice is you need to advocate for yourself first and foremost, because for me, I don't have anything that, and identifying, I don't have a cane, I don't have a dog, a guide dog. I do have a scene guide at times. So when I go into these places, we had an incident where I went to the grocery store when they were allowing only one per family or one per household. And I, of course, am with my husband, who's my scene guide. And I had a bit of an issue getting in. And I had to explain to them my situation, my condition. And even though I did, they still questioned it. Going into the grocery store, even stores in general, walk up this aisle, walk down this aisle. You can't go here, you can't do that. Everything is a visual cue. They don't have anything that's tactile. So I've come across that a lot where it's been difficult to maneuver. People have eased up a bit by touching fruit because I got to touch everything. So I need to, find out what's in front of me and figure out which one I want to pick, or in terms of an apple or whatever it is. At the beginning, it was a little difficult because you would get, the rude comments or the stares. Going to a doctor's office even has been interesting. anything, because now there's a whole process of follow this road, follow this arrow, move, go down this corridor, turn left at the red sign. What sign? Where is it? So it's a lot of that that's been really interesting for me.
Absolutely. And a lot of us are nodding saying, yeah, absolutely. Because if you had to go out, it's discouraged, but if you had to go out and if you've had to use public transit and if you've had to end up at the grocery stores, that it has been a struggle because accessibility has been completely flipped upside down during COVID-19 because there's just all kinds of safety measures and social distancing involved. So Mary, I'm hungry, which means everyone else must be too. You want to get cooking?
Sure. Okay. So I sent out a couple of recipes and we're making a little bit of teriyaki fried rice today.
Nice.
And I've got a couple of cheats in here to make it even faster. So instead of, I've made my own teriyaki sauce or marinade. I recommend go getting a store-bought one that's already pre-made, one that you like, and get that into your refrigerator and use that up whenever you need to. So let's start. In front of me, I've got my pan. I've got a cooktop, so you might hear the fan go on as soon as this turns on. I've got my cutting board and a whole bunch of vegetables. And what I'm going to start with is I'm going to pour in 2 tablespoons of sesame seed oil into my pan. Now I haven't turned on the cooktop yet. Oh. And when I do, you let me know if it's too loud. Okay.
That's a good tip in itself, pouring the oil and figuring all that out before you turn on the heat.
Yeah. I mean, normally people would recommend, heat up your pan, add the oil. I suggest put the oil in and then turn everything on. Mm-hmm. It's just, it gives you a bit of guidance and a bit of leeway so you can touch your pan.
Exactly.
Right?
Awesome.
So then I've added in the sesame seed oil. Next, we're going to add in about 3 cloves of garlic, minced up. And that goes. Now I'm going to turn this on. So you guys got to let me know if it's too loud.
Sounds good.
What I've done with the cooktop is I've actually put 2 little sticky squares, yellow, so I can see where the power button is and where I didn't have any bump dots left. So, and where to set it up. How are we doing? You guys can still hear me?
Still hear you.
Okay.
So Mary, question about the sesame oil. Is there a reason other than the taste, I'm assuming, for teriyaki, other than that, any reason why we would use sesame over another oil or other recommendations as well?
The reason why I use sesame, you can use a neutral flavored oil, but this adds so much flavor to your dish that I highly recommend adding the sesame to it. But you could definitely use a neutral oil. You just won't get that nice nuttiness to it. Right. And when you're cooking up the garlic, use your senses. As soon as you get that fragrance, like garlicky kind of scent, your garlic's ready. You don't want to overcook it to burn it. Because once you burn it, you get that little kind of bitter hint to it.
Doesn't take much to burn garlic, right? That's what I've heard.
It doesn't. See, this is probably about 30 seconds. Usually less than a minute, depending on how hot your pan is. We're going to add in all our vegetables. So I like to start with the vegetables that are a little tough. Okay, so I've already pre-cut everything, but I've got some here that I'm going to show you after, once this is sauteing, because we're going to leave it cooking a little bit, as to how to chop them. So carrots, we're dicing these up. Those are going to go right into the pan. I like to cook this up a little bit just before the other veggies go in, just because they're a little tough.
Now, can we thaw out frozen carrots to be used in this recipe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But if you're using fresh carrots, I've got a fresh carrot in front of me and I've got a vegetable peeler. Vegetable peeler is kind of it's got a rubber handle on it. At least mine does because it's a nice grip. They have the stainless steel ones, but that kind of slips out of your hand. So get one with a rubber grip. And it's got a blade on top that can just run along the carrot to peel off that outer layer. Now, 2 ways. You can run it just one directly from the top down, let it rest the tip on your cutting board, or just move it up and down your carrot, and it'll take everything off for you.
I have a question about the cooktop, Mary. For anyone who's not aware, is it just a portable situation?
Yeah, so the cooktop, it's literally, it's one burner, it's convection, so there's no flame, and I'm just going to lower this a little bit before I set off my smoke detector. We don't want that. And it plugs in.
Great.
So I've got my stove behind me, but I didn't want to be rude and have my back towards everyone.
Right.
So I just brought out the convection cooktop. So with the carrot, either cut it in half or cut it into thirds. And then secure with your thumb and your your thumb and your, I can't even talk, index finger. And you're gonna hold that down and cut the carrot in half. Putting the flat side of the carrot down on the cutting board, cut that in half, one again, and again. Take those 4. So now they kind of look like a matchstick, or, well, larger than a matchstick, but strips of carrots. Hold them together, and then you're going to run your knife along to dice it up. So a couple of tricks that you can do for this, if you're not comfortable using a knife, what I would recommend is you can get yourself a mandolin, which will help chop for you. There's also this other gadget that I've seen and I've heard of. And you know what? I can actually put all this together after. If you guys have any questions, just let me know, and I will find the links for you and pass them along.
Awesome.
And what it is it's a container, plastic container at the bottom. On top, it's got this lid, and then you can replace the blades on the lid.
I have it.
Do you?
I have it.
Called? Why is it slipping my mind?
I can't even remember the name of it, to be honest, but it's amazing because everything goes into one container.
Yeah.
Chopped so finely, not to a mince necessarily, but really tiny cubes or squares. But you can also chop bigger things, and that's what would be great with the carrot.
Like onions, because they have one plate that's actually like a grid.
Yeah.
Right, and it's got the steel blades to form like a grid. Mm-hmm. And then you place the onion on top, place the lid over, and push it through. Exactly. And everything goes into this bin at the bottom.
Yeah.
Which I am definitely going to invest in one of those. Because one, it speeds up your chop time. It really does. Keeps everything in one place so it doesn't roll off your counter. Yeah. Oh, that's another tip. Put your cutting board inside a baking sheet, a rimmed baking sheet. So this way, if you're chopping and your carrots roll off your cutting board, then it'll fall into the baking sheet. You don't have to chase it around the house or worry
that your dog's going to eat it.
Right. So now we have our carrots in. I'm not going to cut everything up. It's just to show you, we're going to add in, we'll chop up our red onion, our red pepper, red bell pepper. Couple of ways to chop this. I'm going to show you the easiest way. Hold the red pepper, so place it flat onto your cutting board. Stem side to the right or the left, and the bottom of the pepper on the other side, so it's directly horizontal in front of you. Cut this directly in half. So from the stem to the bottom, directly in half. Using your hands, we're just going to go and scoop out all those seeds and the stem, tear it out, and now you clean your pepper. You don't have to use your blade, you don't have to do anything to it, and everything's cleaned out, it's ready to chop. The other way, what I would do is I would cut the top and the bottom off, and then using a knife, I would just run it along and clean all the membranes and the seeds inside. Nice. But I find this one of the easiest ways. Then to chop this, you want to keep the smooth side onto your cutting board. Hold it with your hand. You want to get a good grip inside on one side, and just start slicing. That's it.
Mary, how thorough do we have to be for removing all the seeds? Me and my mom seem to disagree on, I was like, clean out the pepper completely. You missed a seed. And she was like, it doesn't matter if a few seeds go in. Your thoughts?
If you're not cooking at a fine dining restaurant, it's at your home. You do you. If you're going to leave a couple of seeds in, it's not the end of the world. So I am with your mom on that one. I mean, you don't want them all in there, but you do want. But if a couple get in, it's not bad.
Ruining your dish. Okay.
Also, knife tip. How to know the sharp blade, the sharp side of your knife, is if you hold it in your hand, you pick up the knife. Two things. When you're using a chef's knife, it rocks. So when you place it on your cutting board, If the knife rocks back and forth, you've got the sharp end. If it lays more flat, then you've got the dull side. Or if you're picking it up, the handle is usually an indicator. If the bottom of the base of your handle, you can feel a little lip at the end where the blade starts. I'm not even explaining this right. So when you pick up the knife by the handle and you push forward, if it slides forward, it's on the dull side of the knife. If it prevents you from going any further along the blade, then that's the sharp side at the bottom, because it usually hangs down a little bit, the blade.
And that's something I'm sure no matter how many years you've been in the kitchen, it would make you nervous picking up the rock.
Most definitely.
Someone was jumping in here with a question as well. Morgan, was that you?
Yeah, sorry. I just saw there's a question in the chat from Ted. And Ted was asking where he could get a good talking thermometer and scale. He said it seems to be difficult to find such things for less than like $80 when factoring in exchange rate, shipping, and handling. Any shopping tips on where to find those things?
That's a great question. The first place I would check, honestly, would be the CNIB. I don't know what the prices are there. I wish I had an inside scoop on where to get one for a great price. Randy, do you know of any?
I personally picked up my talking scale and thermometer when I was in the US for the NFB conference, the National Federation for the Blind.
Yeah, they are cheaper there.
It was, yeah, and I didn't want to let that like go. But you know what? At the end of the day, some of these things are investments. Unfortunately, you're going to potentially pay a bit of money for them. If you are in Toronto, I would check out the CNIB store to see what they have available, and then maybe just do a quick online search, because there's ways around it, right, Mary? Like you can now get not instant read thermometers, but the ones you stick into your meat and have it connect to a smartphone device.
Oh, yes, the iGrill.
Exactly, like the iGrill. And not that one specifically, but there are ones with accessible apps that you can use.
Yes.
And then you're going into the app. So you're not looking for an accessible device, but it is made accessible through being able to use your iPhone or Android on it.
And that's what I've done. I've utilized my smart home devices, including my smartphone, for a lot of this. So that's why when it comes to finding best prices, I'm that type where I do spend a little more in the kitchen, only because I know it will last me. And I want to make sure that I'm getting these measurements and timers correctly. So yeah, I would definitely check CNIB to start.
But like the talking thermometers, as I was telling you earlier, Mary, that has been a huge game changer for everything, like down to chicken wings, because, there's nothing like knowing that you're at the correct temperature. There's no other way for me personally to check. I can't tell if the meat is pink or if it's overcooked. It after it goes in my mouth maybe, but by that time, sometimes it's too late. So
yeah, I mean, even with myself, I have Central. It's not the greatest, but it's there. But I still rely on that temperature to tell me if it's done. Yeah, definitely.
So are we putting peppers in right now?
So we've put our red bell peppers in. We sauteed that a little bit. We're going to add in our corn. You can use frozen corn for this. We're going to add in our frozen peas.
What do you like most about this recipe, Mary?
One, that it's done in minutes. And two, it's just all the vibrant colors, the smell, the taste of it. It's got that nuttiness. It's got that kind of umami from the saltiness to it. Mm-hmm. We're going to add in our chickpeas now. So I've washed and drained the chickpeas. It's 1 can. Add that in. I'm going to give it a quick stir. And then I'm going to add in the chopped red cabbage. And all this, I love it because it gives this crunch factor. Because I love a little crunch. I don't know about you guys, but that's one of my favorite parts of this. I mean, even if you have some nuts or anything, I would even top it off after with some nuts.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mary, I'm actually chopping ingredients while I'm listening to you.
Okay.
I have a giant cabbage sitting in front of me. I'm looking at this and thinking, like, if I couldn't see this, I don't know how I would cut it. Do you have any tips? Because this is like a big thing. It's like cauliflower, cabbage, those big things. How would you cut that up?
Yeah. So for this, the first thing I would do is just where the stem part is, place them onto your cutting board, because that'll give you a little bit of stability. And the first thing, just you'll need to use your knife just to cut it in half at least. Or if you can't do half and you want to chop with a smaller knife, if that's what you're more comfortable with, then just cut a quarter of it off. Just slice off just a quarter of it, and it'll be easier for you to handle. Place the cut side down on your cutting board, and then what I do at times, depending on the lighting in the kitchen, I feel my way. So for example, right now I'm just doing a demo with the carrot. But hold your cabbage with one hand, so the hand that you're not chopping with. Secure that, and then I want you to feel the edge, and then just measure where you want to cut. So you want to measure from the end with your finger in, and then slice down, and just cut them in slices. And then once you do that, take that, turn it around, so flip it to the other way, and then just cut across. Cut across, and you're just getting little chops, little chunks of it. Bite-sized pieces. And the reason why I do that is, one, you want to keep them into small pieces just so this way they all cook in unison. They cook together in uniform. And you don't have something cooking quicker than the other. I hope that helps.
Speaking of the actual cooking too, Mary, one question about the pan. How do you decide what pan you're using? I'm assuming this one has a higher end because we've tossed so much in there already and you haven't talked about spillage.
Yeah, so you can use two types of pans for this. I cook a lot, so I'm using a deep dish pan that I have in front of me. If you're not comfortable with that, and you want to make sure that you want to keep everything in together and nothing spillage over the side, use a stock pot and cook this up in a stock pot. So this way, when you're turning, when you're giving it a turn in the pot, everything stays within. You don't have anything flying out of the pot. So this way, the stock pot has like the high sides to that.
Okay. And then the second question was cooking temperatures. So what is this one cooking at currently?
So right now, I've got this at a lower temp, just because I don't want it to start sizzling and set off my smoke detector while we're talking. But I would say a medium heat, because you want this nice and hot. You want to kind of get that fry, that sizzle to it. So I would say about a medium heat for this.
Yeah. And there's been times in my cooking life where I have turned up the heat just so that I'm cooking faster or want to get things done right away. Or I was like, well, that's how everybody else does it. Everybody else meaning sighted people in this reference. Right. And I've turned around and said, it's just not worth it because you end up or things not cooking evenly. What are your thoughts?
Stick with the recipe. Don't cook. If you're in a hurry, then don't make the dish. Make something that you can make within the time frame that you have. Reason being is, like you said, when you turn up the heat and you try to cook it a lot faster, you'll get that sear and that burn on the outside, but inside of whatever it is that you're cooking will still remain raw, uncooked. So you're not going to get that even cooked through. And then, like for veggies, exactly, you don't get that beautiful caramelization that happens on the outside of that vegetable. When the natural sugars hit that sizzling pan. If you put the heat up too high, you're going to scorch it. And no one wants any of that.
No. Maybe you because you cooked it, but that's it.
Yeah. Going back to the cabbage, another one is a mandolin. So if you had, I wish I had mine out here to show you. So it's a flat device. It's handheld, but I like to get the one that stabilizes onto your counter. And then it's got a blade on it. And now I'm mentioning a blade again. But the reason why I say this one's a little better than a knife is because you can actually use, there's a piece to it that spears the food. And it's a handle, so it's handheld, and then you can have it spearing the food, and you just use the handle to push that cabbage or lettuce, whatever it is you want, cucumbers through that mandolin and slices it for you without your hands contacting and getting close with the blade.
Very cool.
All right, so now I've got the veggies in, they're ready. Chickpeas went in. We are gonna add our rice and then our teriyaki sauce. Where did I put the rice? Is right behind me, excuse my back. Into the same pan, everything goes in. So I've pre-cooked this rice and I've given the recipe. And I like to cook it the day before or use leftover rice. It sautés so well.
Long grain?
Long grain. Long grain. I'm using basmati white. But definitely long grain. So now I'm putting in about half a cup of teriyaki sauce or marinade.
Question about the rice. Can we substitute with either A, any other kind of rice, or B, a different kind of starch altogether?
You could. You can do, if you don't want to use a carb, you can do the cauliflower rice. I would just recommend, again, like the rice, like using the long grain, is cook it up beforehand because it'll release that water. And what you're looking for with this is that sizzle, that hot pan. So the water will definitely mellow that out, and it may actually steam your vegetables instead of keeping them nice and crisp. You can definitely use the cauliflower rice. Are you suggesting maybe quinoa instead of rice to this?
Curious about it.
Yeah, you definitely could. Same thing, just cook it up in advance.
Or new.
It's all about that searing. It's all about that item that hits the pan and gets that caramelization and that sizzle too, that sizzle factor.
Nice.
I love the sounds of the kitchen, if you can't tell.
It's Morgan again. I have another question from a participant. So Alicia is saying that she has some fears around using the stove and the oven with her sight loss. So do you have any tips for overcoming that fear and just getting more comfortable in the kitchen in general?
Yeah, definitely. I would start small. So what I started with, to get myself back into the kitchen, you guys are gonna laugh, but I started with grilled cheese. And depending on what your comfort level is or what type of stove you have, if you have an electric stove top, a cooktop, then you just wave your hand on top of it until you feel that heat and you know that the burner's on and you can place your pan on top. If you have a gas stove like I do, you'll hear the clicking, you'll hear the gas go on. Again, put your hand over. The only thing is just raise it a little further up from that flame because you don't want to burn your hand. When you put your pan onto the stove, a couple of things that have helped me. To find the handle on the pan can be challenging at times. So get yourself a wooden spoon, whatever you're cooking with, and then you want to reach it out in front of you until you hit and feel the handle. So even if you hit the side of the pan, run your wooden spoon along the side of the pan until you hit that handle, and then you know you can reach out and grab that handle. It's safe. You're not touching the pan. And the reason why I started with grilled cheese was because I could use a spatula. I didn't have to, or even tongs. So this way I didn't have to get my hand too close to the flame or the pan or anything that's going on. So I would definitely start with something small, grilled cheese, or even if you're chopping, try chopping with a paring knife first and practice. It's not a race. Take your time, go slow, and just work through it.
Yeah.
I hope that answers it.
If I can jump into, Mary, I have a stove that is the glass tops, right?
Yeah.
You don't have the burner that's raised up. You don't have the coils to feel, once to check where it is. And even the contrast for some of us who are low vision is pretty poor. So you're not sure where the burners are. At least I'm not. So it really helps for me to orient myself with the stove first and on a cold, not heated up stove.
Yes.
And then go in afterwards with the heat.
Yeah, and orient yourself. So know where the handles are, know where the knobs are, know where the burners are. But it is challenging with the cooktop.
Yeah.
Right? Do you find that when you place your hand over top to feel the temp of a cooktop, does that help you?
I do, and I do it even when the pan is on to see if it's centered. Right?
Yes.
make sure that you're not, your pan is not all the way to the right or completely off the heat. And also with the oven, it's really helpful to get those gloves. What do you call them? The rubber ones.
Oh, the silicone ones that I'm constantly talking about and raving about on Kelly & Company?
Absolutely. Silicone gloves have helped in so many situations, even if it is just for the stove, because those things can come up to your elbows for some of us. And it's because we're not in contact at all with heat.
And I have a pair that have fingers. So I got to get these because I talk about these all the time. And these are my silicone gloves. They go up to, when I put them on, so they've got fingers to mine. Mine isn't a mitt, which is fantastic. It's a game changer for me. And they go up to like almost to my elbow. I do have freakishly small hands and limbs. But they do go up. You can also buy them a lot longer. And these, if you're uncomfortable, going near the stove, cook on the stove. Do your grilled cheese with these. Now, when you're eating it, it's okay, but you do you again. But you can hang on to the handle and anything. If you want to touch the pot, it won't burn and you won't hurt yourself. So definitely invest in some of these.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
So good. So Mary, what kind of leftovers can you make with this specific recipe that you're making today, the teriyaki fried rice? You know how we love leftovers.
We all love leftovers. For me, this one here, I like it on its own because there's just so much going on in here. By the way, it's done. It's already done.
Yeah.
It's already done cooking. Yeah, this meal's done. So I like it on its own, but you can also make them. I'm like the wrap queen, the sandwich queen. I absolutely love turning everything into either a gourmet sandwich or a gourmet wrap. And you can use this as a base. So if you notice, my protein in here were the chickpeas. I didn't add any meat, any chicken, no beef, nothing. You can, if you want, turn it into a wrap and then add in maybe falafels in that wrap. You can buy them pre-made or make them yourself. It's so much fun. Put a little bit of, what else can you put in this wrap? Oh my gosh, it's endless when you put things in a wrap.
Those nuts?
Oh, definitely. You could put some cashews in here, some almonds, peanuts if you don't have an allergy. So how I top this though, is I use some toasted sesame seeds and some sliced scallions or green onions. So then I've done some here. And this, I'm just gonna sprinkle it on top. And again, you don't have to get fancy. You can serve it right in your pan or put it in a serving dish. Want to do a little Martha Stewart action? It's not a problem.
I wish we could smell your kitchen right now though.
Honestly, I haven't eaten, so you know that I'm not even gonna serve this up. I'm gonna put my fork right to this pan and just eat out of here. There we go. So I just put some scallions on top, some toasted sesame seeds. We're good. We're done. And when it's done, I have one that I've made, but I won't eat it because I feel bad I can't share with you guys. So it's here. But if you're making it at home, then you can dig in.
We're going to be making it at home. We have our social starting at 5 p.m. Eastern time, folks. So right after this, and then you guys can be helping, or not helping, well, helping yourselves maybe, but cook this meal and remember all the tips that Mary had for us. Mary, one last question about the dish, and then I got something else for you. You said, what was it, half a cup for this recipe of sauce?
The teriyaki sauce.
Okay.
You can use less, you can use more. It's completely up to you and your taste buds. Yeah. And you notice I didn't add salt to it because I want you to finish the dish, give it a taste. If it's salty enough for you, then that's fine. If you want to add a little more, this is where you can add it at the end and just salt it up a little bit. You don't want to overpower it with salt. So give it a taste. Always taste your food as you're cooking. It's a great indicator of what you need more or less of. Yeah.
It's Morgan again. I have another question actually similar to that in the Q&A. So Jacob says that he has a similar form of RP. However, his is the result of part of a syndrome that is sensory deprivative. I'm going to say that word. And thus I have a limited sense of smell and taste. Do you have any tips in regards to cooking?
I do, actually. When you're cooking and what I would recommend is using a recipe. So, I mean, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, they'll use their senses of smell or their taste. But in your case, I would suggest and recommend using a recipe and timing it, because times are so important. So if this recipe right now, and how I've created this one is, I'll say, you know, cook the vegetables for 2 minutes. You can go 2 to 3, don't go any longer, and you know that they're done. I would just definitely rely on your times and follow the times that are set out within a recipe.
And as my mom always does, she makes us taste test.
There's that too. So if you're on your own, I would definitely rely on times. If not, get your friends and family, everyone to taste test it.
Right. So this has been amazing, Mary. Thank you so much. And thanks for walking us through your career and the changes and going back into the kitchen as well. It's, I'm sure, so relatable on some level for all of us who are listening today, and especially with all the tips in the kitchen. So appreciated, because, you know, it's so satisfactory to cook a meal for yourself. It honestly is. The first time I like, I did this. It feels so good. So appreciate all of this. And I want to ask you, going back a little bit to the career stuff.
Yeah.
What was the best career advice that you were ever given, if you have something, and who gave it to you?
I would have to say it would have to be someone that I met on the cooking competition that you and I were on.
Get out. It wasn't me? No.
Yeah, no, Remy. It was one of the judges, Chef Sang-Kian. After the competition, after we stopped shooting, cameras were off. He came over, you know, hugged me, said you did a great job. And he told me, don't stop doing it. Continue doing what you're doing, because you definitely have a future in this.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, and he said, don't take no for an answer. So basically, and that, I think that's what I wanted to say at the beginning was, if you tell yourself you can't do it, if someone tells you you can't do it, that it's not possible, they're lying. You're lying to yourself. You're making it more than what it is, because I used to tell myself that all the time. And you can definitely do anything you set your mind up to doing. I did it.
100%. And it could be one of the most intimidating things at the start, right? It could be
absolutely
so scared to try something like this, but I really, really want it. And that's what we should be focusing on, the really wanting to.
And find what makes you happy. If you're doing something and it makes you happy, continue doing it. And the more you do it, the more you end up, you know, practicing and you know, mastering your craft.
You want to tell us a little bit about your podcast, Kitchen Confession, as well as Bits and Bites, which is the newest addition to your podcast platform?
It is. Kitchen Confession is, it's a foodie podcast. So if you love food, and we get a whole bunch of guest experts on, who Ramya has been on, and we talk about, we have chefs, we have people in the community, everyone. It's inclusive, everyone's invited, and we talk about food. We talk about their experiences with food. We talk about if there are any cookbook authors, how they develop and started cooking, how they started their process to developing a cookbook. It's a lot of fun. We have a couple of games that we play, and you get to know a little bit behind the scenes of each guest. And it's about a 30-minute podcast. Bi-weekly, you can catch it on any podcast player. It's Kitchen Confession, no S at the end. And you can catch Bits and Bites, which is brand new. It's a rapid fire podcast. I've got a co-host, and we tackle one question every single episode. They're 50-minute episodes. We've got one more bite episodes, which are really quick. And what we do is, again, guest experts come on. We have a topic, like let's say one topic is Dalgona coffee. Apparently I'm saying it wrong. So if you have Dalgona, pardon?
TikTok coffee?
Yes, the whipped coffee trend. We had that. We had people talking about how it went from it's across all cultures. So it's something that you think only is developed in one. It's not. There's similar coffees in other cultures that do the same type of thing. And we have guest experts that speak on that and talk about it.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. And they're both available on any podcast platform, right? So people could just search it up.
Every single podcast platform, search it up. One is Bits and Bites, and the other one is Kitchen Confession.
And kitchenconfession.com for all of Mary's tips, tricks, recipes. I just want to plug you right now because, you know, Thanksgiving just passed, and this year I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a Thanksgiving turkey. I've never done it before. Barely have ever had Thanksgiving food because it wasn't what my family did growing up. And basically I went to kitchenconfession.com, found an entire turkey tour. Like, that's the only way I can explain it, because it was from how to buy your turkey, how to prep your Thanksgiving from like 2 weeks in advance, basically, and then how to roast your turkey, how to stuff it, how to do everything. She had everything up there, and I'm telling you, it was one of the best experiences I've had in the kitchen. So kudos to you for giving me that.
Thank you so much. I love hearing that, and I love it when people try the recipes and hear what they think of it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because food talk's always fun.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Mary. We honestly appreciate you so much, and the recipe and sharing it with us and cooking it with us. You're going to stick around for a bit too after 5 p.m. for social. So if anyone's cooking at that time, Mary's there to answer questions and laugh along with you.